Hey guys, welcome back to another video. So in this particular video, it's gonna be more of like a rant. There's nothing, I guess, to learn from this particular topic, but I'm gonna be talking about how a project like a comic allows you to work on mini projects within a larger project. And I think this is helpful for maybe people who might get bored of a project quickly, or who like to hop around on projects, or maybe you need different things to work on to help keep you engaged on a project so that you don't just get tired of it and be like, you know what, I'm done with it. I don't care. Uh, so for me in particular, like I like, for me, having a comic to work on is beneficial. There are so many things that I can work on within a comic that allow me to, if I don't feel like doing one thing one day, I can work on something else related to the comic in a different way. So, an example would be you have like character design, world building, illustration, promotional art, writing, etc., right? An example would be when I was starting the recordings for Lynk. I think I was working on the cover for Lynk. I'm kind of moving my tablet here so I can check, but I think I was working on the actual cover. And then at some point, I got tired of working on the cover. I was just like, I'm tired of working on this. It was becoming, I was getting a little frustrated on certain things, and I was just like, I'm kind of not feeling this anymore. Not the comic or the project, but just not feeling working on the cover right now. And instead of taking a huge hiatus off the comic and just being like, you know what, I'm just not going to work on it until I quote unquote feel motivated to do it again, I'm just going to work on something else. And that something else was working on the actual pages for the comic. And on the days that I don't feel like working on pages for the comic, I was working on character design. I don't know if I actually recorded myself working on any of the character designs. Maybe I did at some point. I can't remember. But being able to have different projects within a larger project definitely helps me. There's things that I can do, like today I'll be working on some pages after I finish knocking out some audio recordings for these speed drawings. But I can work on small illustrations or even large illustrations of the world, or illustrations of the characters, or illustrations of scenes that I have in my head for promotional art. I can do illustrations on some of the characters interacting with each other for promotional art. There are so many things that I can do within the project of Lynk that allows me to really not get bored of the work. Like if I wanted to, I could really delve deep into world building, not necessarily for the comic, but if I wanted to do like a an art of book, or like an extras section in the comic to kind of have sorry, that's my chair squeaking here, have like behind the scenes like stories or information regarding the world and the characters and stuff within it, I have that stuff that I can provide to people who hopefully enjoy the comic and the world that I'm building. And even though it might seem like it's a waste of time at first, it allows me to be more invested. For me anyway, it allows me to be more invested into my work, to where I just want to continue it more, and I want to work on it more and try to get it done. I get more interested and more motivated to then work on the pages and stuff associated with it, because I'm working on other things outside of just the pages. An example would be one of my friends. We were talking one day. She came over. We were chit chatting, and I was explaining to her the concept of Lynk, and just talking to her got me motivated about getting the work done, because as I'm talking to her, I'm envisioning everything that's going on within the comic, all the scenes that I'm thinking about drawing and having done and completed, and being able to just myself being able to pick it up and flip through this story that I have worked on, and being able to see it in physical form, and getting her feedback and seeing her get excited about the story, got me motivated to work on the pages. And it's stuff like that, like, being able to be like, oh, I wonder what type of creatures inhabit this world. Even though they're not the focus, I can still do art that might include maybe some creatures, as my phone goes off, some creatures that might be considered pets or farm animals or wild creatures within this world that people might find interesting, and that I can put into other things for people how can I say this? I know there are some people that when they get into a comic, and I am this way. So I know there are other people out there who are like this as well. Cause some people who have like, oh yeah, I love when artists do this and stuff like that. So back in the day, there used to be I would say back in the day, but I know back in the early 2000s when it was more, when people had their own websites, or they went onto a hosting platform like Smack Jeeves, or I know I'm aging myself here, but like Smack Jeeves and other stuff, where it was a website that kind of like Webtoons, but better. I'm sorry, I don't like Webtoons. But it was like Webtoons, but it was better. And it was a hosting website where people could go on. You could create your comics in like page format, so it wasn't like this. It wasn't like scrolling, like the phone scrolling. It was like an actual page, like a regular comic page, and they would have their comic on there, and they would have their pages. So you could click next and all the rest of that stuff to go to the next page, yada yada yada. And then they would have, for the most part, some comics, not all, but some comics would have like extras pretty much on top of their section, right? So you could go to like the section where it was like the cast of a comic, and you could read snippets of a character. And for the ones that were like I found most interesting were like, say that the character was just introduced, or say a character wasn't introduced yet, they would have a character box, and it would just be a black silhouette of the character with like a question mark. The name would be marked. You wouldn't have a name. There would be no bio. There would be nothing. But you just knew there was going to be a character that was going to be important enough to be on the cast page, but they hadn't been introduced yet. And then when they did get introduced, the artist would go ahead and update the cast page so that way you had a picture of the new character, maybe a name if they had dropped the name. So sometimes they didn't drop the name yet, and the name would be question marked out, and there would be no bio, or there would be very little information about a character if it was mentioned in the comic. And as the comic continued and more information was released about that character, the artist would update that information. And I found that stuff interesting, because it's like, ooh, who is this character? What are they about? Like, they would have their interests, their likes, their dislikes, their hobbies, stuff like that. And then you would even have like maybe their hometown, stuff like that, right? Who they hated the most, who they liked the most. And then you would even have some who would have like extras where it was like maybe information about the world, whether it be like the region, or like the magic system, or like the plants, the weather, their clothing, just extras that even though it didn't relate to the story at all whatsoever, you were now more immersed into the world and more invested into the comic, because you got to know these characters and this world on a more personal level versus just the little stuff here and there that you might pick up from the comic. I think there was even some comics I would read that they would even provide information on like some of the NPCs, like I'm just gonna say like maybe Jack, the bartender. You get to find out that maybe he actually hates being a bartender, and his real dream is to become a musician and leave the town and and travel the seas, spreading his music or something like that. Just something weird like that, right? But it's like when you know that information about that character, you have you look at that character different now when you read that story, and every time you see that character, you know deep down he loathes his job, and it makes it relatable because there are people who genuinely just hate their job and they wish they were doing something else. So I think for me anyway, being able to do stuff like that helps me as the artist also become more invested into my story and my worlds that I'm building. And then hopefully with sharing that information to my audience, they will become more invested into the world that I'm creating as well. So, having a comic, I think creating a comic is a wonderful way on not only having multiple projects within a larger project, but it also gives you the freedom to really explore and do other things outside of just working on pages if you choose to do so. So that's all I got for right now. I hope this video was entertaining. I know it wasn't informative, but I hope you guys found it entertaining at least. But that's it. That's all I've got for right now. And I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out.